instant compositions. Claiming that first tick is going to be absolutely vital. That way you can kind of flip the script, and as opposed to the Reinhardt trying to close the gap on the Winston, you can make it the opposite and play that counter dive style. So first point tick is what I'm looking at here. Be a huge factor.
One of the funny things too, it's not funny, but interesting. I'm not laughing about it, but it is interesting that we start off on this submap here, where yesterday, what was Ataraxia playing? They were playing Winston on this submap. That was what they chose to go into Peps with.
I doubt they do today. It went horribly for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a little bit of a suffering moment, I think, for them, but it is something that they did try, and you see Sovereigns right now at least hovering that rush comp, and I'm curious to see, you know, how this actually winds up working out, because, again, when you look at the default compositions that teams are going to start with, you would expect this to be a flip. You would expect Jakaru and Sovereigns to be running the Winston, Ataraxia to be running the Rhine, but in fact, it's the other way around.
I mean, there's a big degree of rock, paper, scissors rolling out between these two teams, just with the styles that they have, the compositions they have available in their back pockets, and I think they'll both be a little bit surprised to see that this has been the case, and each have a chuckle to themselves as each tank wishes they were playing the other. But no, no big problems are going to be served up. Jakaru and Held each very strong on these respective tanks and should not be doubted regardless of their comfort. Ataraxia take up the low point. Sovereigns will have to drop eventually. It's kind of exactly what we saw yesterday. Jakaru will be forced, but they drop his 6 instead, trying to run down Held. Like you said, put pressure on that monkey. He gives it up. They take the high ground instead. Now it's Ataraxia poking downwards, but Sovereign got that point tick. The question is, can they fight from such an enclosed position?
This is exactly the same way this opened up, but Sovereign's taking a lot more pressure than what we saw from Peps yesterday as Jakaru gets dropped, but great support there from Buddy. Sovereign still need to maintain this though, and now they've lost their immortality as well.
It's real hard to fight from this hallway. Hero doesn't have the greatest angle on it, which is about the best saving grace you have, and as he drops, it's trying to all in Jakaru. It works beautifully. Sovereigns now without a main tank. The House of Cards is bound to fumble, and Ataraxia are going to topple it over with a Kitsune Rush.
Real early ult generation there for Canale, obviously just delivering the damage and following through as well, getting those 2 kills. Lethal into the back line. That's exactly what you need from that player. Here's the thing though, because of the nature of how Ataraxia have to take that neutral engagement until they can start cycling those ultimates, they trade that low ground for the high ground, and obviously that meant that Sovereigns, they're already up at 36%. So as we're starting to build towards these ults, it's all about lockdown here for Sovereigns. They have to catch Ataraxia as actually Jakaru goes over to the Winston, and they're matching now.
Yeah, Winston may die was not something I thought I'd see, but it is a transitional composition. They are working towards that. Blizzard, if we're looking for an opportunity, well zoned by Emilio, trying to separate the members of Ataraxia, and actually does manage to do so pretty well as Summer down on the point. Dale's going to get dropped down to half HP, and Overclock looks to reclaim said space, though, from Ataraxia as Hero storms forward with this ultimate, picking up a second, looking for a third on the Lucio. He's not meant to get it, but the advantage alone should be enough to finish out the fight.
And when we talked yesterday about what Ataraxia is capable of, you couldn't not mention Hira and Psycho in the same breath, and Hira coming up with Via, Helv, making plays, finding that consistency between team fights. That is exactly what has made Ataraxia seem like such a major threat, just shutting down both DPS players there with the overclock, working that, I mean, really aggressive angle, and you're going to see more of that here as well.
I mean, the team holding the point here is such an advantage, right? Being able to hold this position is so powerful, and diving into it is anything but safe, and Jakaru found that exactly why. Dives in with Primal Rage, doesn't even have time to react to it before hitting the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good news is that he still has it for the next fight.
A real thin silver lining.
Yeah, I mean, now they have 12 seconds from here. Ataraxia, they're looking for those picks. Psycho has the pulse bomb. That's going to be a pretty easy attach, and we're going to see the 1-to-1 with the Kitsune rushes as well.
Kitsune rushes matched. Hero the opener again. This player's been nothing but a star. Psycho following up on that. You just have to admire Ataraxia. This is, like we said, a team that can pop off at any moment, but I think you really have to highlight Hero, Psycho, Canale, and Ja. If I had to identify 4 players that I would just describe as fraggers in their respective positions, it's those 4. For my money, Canale's one of, if not the best Kiriko that we have in EU. Ya's one of those players that can absolutely pop off in a backline every once in a while, and here in Psycho have been producing first picks like they've been born to do it.
Yeah, I think we were talking yesterday, and it just felt like a lot of the conversation was centered around, okay, Ataraxia, and I think this is the conversation not just that we're having. Wow, 86%. They do have
that was more than the Peps
massive
vote
following
yesterday.
They do have a massive following, Ataraxia. So this isn't, I guess, super surprising. It'll be interesting to see Ataraxia versus Peps as like a community kind of back and forth, because those two teams have massive followings. But either way, yeah, I mean, kind of the conversation is that Ataraxia should develop into being a good team, but it almost feels like they're already at that point where the development has caught that stage where they're just top tier competitive, one of the best teams in the region as it stands right now.
I mean, for me, the one thing they're missing is just that consistency, and it's almost there. They certainly do have a certain degree of consistency, but Hira on some maps is hard carrying, on others is putting up more than average performances, but, not exactly the pop-off we saw on the last point, so once you get that, once that's there, it's going to be so difficult. Now it's Melio under pressure. Hira finishes them off. Helv traded out, though. The most worthwhile trade, but they can continue to find picks off the back of the position that Hira's garnered himself. It's going to work out just fine for them. A third for the Sojourn, and a point tick for Ataraxia.
So, pretty similar to that first submap that we saw. Sovereigns taking early control. Ataraxia winning the neutral fight. Still, of course, some investment here from Sovereigns, trying to go 1-to-1, but bringing in that Reaper, so they're trying to make sure that Jkaru wins the tank battle. Unfortunately for them, Ataraxia is just so lethal between Hira and Psycho, just working those flanks.
It's not even just the flanks, right? It's its high ground control, and Hira having in the last fight was just brutal. The health bars of Sovereigns as they make this engagement literally don't exist. They didn't make it through the choke point without losing 80% of their HP, and they don't have many ways of really turning that around. They can soothe you for all of a moment, but burst healing an entire team is just not something you can do.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, when your whole focus is, okay, we want to win the tank battle, it's very difficult to do that when you lose all of your burst pressure. Yikids and Melio both dying there. Hira holding out in a great spot here as well. Overclock at the ready. Sovereigns, I mean, they're going to be diving forward into a 1-to-1 on support ults, but more specifically, Hero being able to just rip their heads off, probably even through the sound barrier.
Natlock's being 10% over the sound barrier might actually be a huge advantage for them as they push in here. Yeah, they beat Bia by just a moment, but this is going to see them through practically the entire fight. Sovereigns want to try and claim that high ground, and overextension does mean a death for Natlocks. Be real careful here if you're Sovereigns. Ataraxia could look to re-engage this pretty quick.
Yeah, look at the respect here given by Sovereigns to Ataraxia. They're just not pressing the spawn in the same way that Ataraxia was before. And this is going to be a quick reset, actually, for Ataraxia. They're already pushing in here, and they have a ton of tools to do it.
Melio's as good as dead. Melio's as good as dead. Put in a corner by Jkaru. I can't think of a scarier competition than that. Sovereigns have been rolled over. They respected Ataraxia for good reason, but even the positions that they were in respecting Ataraxia were too far forward, and Help was able to separate them out and punish them.
Sovereigns coming back into this next fight. I mean, they desperately need to find a quick kill, because if Ataraxia can sustain through that first punch, overclock, obviously the Death Blossom as well, by usage of the sound barrier, they might be able to turn this fight over time and whittle down Sovereigns.
I mean, that's not any punch to just sustain through. Oh, especially for Hira. Melio, Ism 1. They have not been able to finish out these fights, but with Hira dead, their odds go up significantly. Beyond Canale falling next, and finally, Sovereigns can breathe a sigh of relief as they'll take a point back over Ataraxia, just beneath 99% as well.
Great spot in the economy too, buddy. Of course, going to have the Kitsune Rush in this next fight. They still have Death Blossom, so there is a 1-2 punch available there for Sovereigns if they can find a good position to utilize those tools together. That's a lot easier said than done, especially as Ataraxia is already diving in on it.
Aggressive Kitsune Rush from Sovereigns, and easy fight win at that. Getting your kids in up against Help, it's just a death sentence.
And no hope getting out of that one. No one's leaving the octagon but Sovereigns in that fight. And Ataraxia, they wanted that quick fight. They were trying to generate some ults, trying to pull some ults from Sovereigns, but Sovereigns are actually in just such a great state with regards to the economy here, because, I mean, you look at Ataraxia, and this is going to be the last fight, and they don't really have much at their disposal. I think there's going to be a major reliance here on Helv sustaining, buying time, and Hira just finding some heads, and they're already down a player.
The canal doesn't bode well for them. They're trying to force out the Sojourn, making sure that Hira doesn't have room to use that overclock, and they won't. 99%'s going to crest over. Sovereigns will match for the map.
Just like that, a map that looked like it was almost a guarantee for Ataraxia. I mean, it just went freely the other direction. Hira, though, is not letting it go without a fight. Fortunately for Sovereigns, they were able to answer this time. You always got to wonder.
Here's one of the few people that can make you, like, stutter right there, you know?
Yeah, because there's always a shot. We made that mistake yesterday where we were like, okay, this is a done fight. It's over. Blizzard World is done and dusted. Then all of a sudden, Helv gets like a 2 or 3K with Terra Surge, and Psycho just somehow 1v2s for like 10 straight seconds, long enough for Hira to get back into position and throw the button. You know what I mean? Like, there's just...
Yeah.
This team has a way of just making it seem like the impossible is indeed possible.
I mean, Sovereigns have at least matched that for now. I think a big mid-round change as well during this point, right? A lot of that pressure, just hard focusing down Hira. Shoving Helv back into him as well. You talked about the tank pressure that's going down initially. Well, the focus has changed, and it will now again as Reinhardt's come into play.
And this is going to be a huge... it's going to be a shift.
Oh, wow.
Drastically, and already that first opening pick, Sovereigns, I mean, they're just going to be forced to back up as Ataraxia is going to clean up here. They're going to get the objective, but it should be a quick recontest here for Sovereigns. They're close to their spawn. Seeing that swap. Yet again, another pick, so... Sovereigns, not exactly the greatest start for them here with the Rhine comp, and we expect Ataraxia to be strong with this composition, but not all too much is lost, obviously, very early on in this sub-map still.
Yeah, but I mean, this is again a map where I would put first tick above other control maps even, especially with Maze in play. Psycho's going to have a beautiful position to wall basically anything that Sovereigns want to do, and Sovereigns are going to try and keep their distance, a 6-foot stick, away from the opposing team until they can properly get in and avoid that wall. Emilio gives Hira a taste of his own medicine, offering up a first pick to the opposing side's Cassidy, but Natlock's traded out for it. Ataraxia quickly muscling over the likes of Sovereign.
Just that explosive play where as soon as you see the walls come down and everybody from Ataraxia just finds one target and just makes them disappear. Sovereigns, they had a great start. Fortunately, just couldn't come up with the fight win, and with these fights going so quickly, it's so difficult to shore up some of those deficits that they're seeing in the ultimates, where obviously they're going to have to spend some time to build, and that's just not a position you want to be in, especially when you have to push in against these walls.
I mean, the ultimates as well are just impossible to play into right now. Helv beat J-Karu to shatter by 50%. Psycho's going to extend this lead even further with an opening set of 2. There's no DPS left here. Ataraxia can do basically what they want in moments like this, and you start to see that Rhine experience shine through for Helv. Even in the last fight prior to this, he's not just fighting J-Karu, he's hitting cleave on the entirety of Sovereigns, and it's putting him massively ahead in terms of charge.
Yeah, and on top of everything, too, we also just see Ataraxia, while they're already ahead, they also matched 1-to-1 and came out decisively ahead. So they're still going to have 3, maybe even 4 ults into this next fight, where Sovereigns, they're still way behind. Look at Natlocks. The sound barrier might not even happen this map at all.
Don't put that cursed statement out into the world, Eric. It's not time. Helv, a shatter available. Players close to him, but just no opportunity. Swings it around. Instead, it's J-Karu who lands his. In retort, though, Helv gives him some own of his medicine. That's certainly not how that goes, but the results are nevertheless the same. Ataraxia, before Natlocks gets the sound barrier on, yes, Herix, have won the map.
I believe also before the Deadeye came too. So
Ouch.
Ataraxia, I mean, a dominant performance there. Once it came down to those Rhine compositions and mirroring out, felt like they were pretty well ahead. They won the neutral and never let go at that point. So I think looking forward in this matchup, as we're going to see a little bit of a highlight.
This is what I was talking about, man. Look at the cleave he's getting. Hitting 3 members at a time at the beginning of this fight. The ult charge just piles up at that rate. And at that point, even though J-Karu knows that he has the ultimate, even though he can play into it, just having the ultimate and the threat of it is enough a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, they're just forced to hold the shield up. They're forced to just kind of give away pressure because they don't want to have their team just die because they weren't holding the shield up. It's a great mental battle, and that's one thing that we actually love about this composition, especially when it's mirrored. But I think looking forward to my point earlier, that's something that I think Ataraxia is going to probably rely on in this series. If this kind of does start going and drifting away towards the direction of a lot of Winston maps and Sovereign's trying to playing into that, and Ataraxia is struggling to play against them into it, they always have that backup of, okay, we did great with the Rhine v Rhine. Why not try to just throw a map in there that kind of forces that? There are certainly some maps in this map pool that you could do that in. And interestingly, as we talked before about some of the maps that we would expect Rhine to be very strong, King's Row was one of those maps that we talked about. And this is this is a pick that isn't Ataraxia's. This is Sovereign's map pick taking us to London.
I mean, okay, we do have to be realistic, right? At this point in Overwatch's meta, it is a historical Rhine map, but that doesn't mean that Winston's not good on it, right? Like, this is still a map that could very much be played by other compositions.
Yep.
First point's very available. Basically, anything goes at that point. And yes, it's the mirror that you're scared of, but you have to opt into the mirror. And so I don't think that's something they really plan on doing anytime soon. It still is a curious pick. I think you're playing into the strengths. This was an opportunity, especially with the meta being where it is and map picks working how they do. If you lose the first map, you could realistically dodge almost every Rhine map if you really wanted to. You could, because think right?
Yeah.
You pick push and you pick hybrid, which means you could avoid King's Row and you could avoid Colosseo, which is the two big ones that you have to get out of the way. But they opt in for it regardless.
Yeah, and I think you provide a great point too, is because even if you go to Colosseo, it's not necessarily entirely a Rhine only map like we've seen in the past. So there certainly is more versatility than we're giving these maps credit for. But either way, this is still one of the maps that I would imagine that Ataraxia is going into this saying, okay, we know we want to kind of go in this direction. These are some maps. I don't know if King's Row would be their #1 top choice, but it's certainly, I would imagine, up there against a team like Sovereigns, unless Sovereigns has something very different up their sleeve and prepared for this, which we have seen. I mean, look back at Blizzard World for Ataraxia. The expectation was one thing, and the result was an entirely different thing. However, they still played really well, and they played into Peps, and they were able to kind of steal something away on that one. So could go the same for Sovereigns.
My question is the game plan the same? We have maybe the different compositions. We have Winston into Rhine maybe in a lot of this, but is it still target hero down? Is it still trying to dive that high ground constantly, or is that something that's not as feasible on King's Row?
Yeah, it's a tough call to make, because I think when you're talking about these dive compositions that Sovereigns, I mean, I think they look most proficient on. That's something that Ataraxia has proven that they can play against the rush. They can slow that down. They can play versus the dive, and they can figure out ways to kind of have that front-loaded pressure just, I mean, diminished, or even just take that front-loaded pressure and kill it before it has a chance to actually provide that pressure. We've seen Ataraxia just do such a good job of mitigating what everyone else is trying to accomplish. That's kind of the thing that I think stands out most about them, is that while they are a team that is fast-paced, high-tempo, aggressive, they try to make their own plays, they're also really good at just mitigating the pros of a lot of other teams' compositions.
And it's expected of them to do the same thing on King's Row. This is a matchup that's been played time and time and time again. It would be... We have to preface this beforehand, because we've kind of been giving the percentage chances that we kind of expect them to be coming out on different stuff, but then they ran out on opposing compositions in Antarctica. So we really, really don't expect the Reinhardt to come out from Sovereigns right about now. Like, if they were to try and lock in the mirror here, it would be just insane, especially after losing.
Yeah, I think... There are some teams, though, and there are definitely players that are able to go ahead and say, okay, we slipped up a little bit. We lost the neutral. We obviously get behind. Momentum's in their favor. We think we could do better. We just kind of wipe the slate clean, and we say, okay, we can transition this and figure it out. That has happened. However, I just don't think that that's necessarily the case with what we have here. I think this is a team that's going to go in a different direction. So I agree with you in the case that while we could see a mirror, that there's no way that that's why they chose this map. There's no way that you put all your chips on the table, especially in the lower bracket. They have something else in store for us. And I do believe we have a little bit of an idea what it is, but I'm going to wait to see exactly before we start talking about it. Helv, the rest of Ataraxia, I would imagine that they are going to just approach this the same way that we saw Antarctica. If they need to make any swaps, they can, but starting off on something that's going to either cause chaos, like we've seen on a lot of their first points, or just going straight over to the Rhine comp are probably the two things that I would bet on. For Sovereigns, on the other hand, though, it's that Winston composition. And this is where they get most of their strength. We talked about first point, where this is really strong. That's where they're going to try to steal away a lot of time for Ataraxia here.
Tall order. Just waiting to see what Ataraxia does. I'm curious to see if Hira stays, because he's been getting targeted down on the Sojourn like you wouldn't believe. I was actually surprised to see Emilio continue to lock in the Sojourn here. After how the matchup was going prior, did an alright job, but trying to match Hira is a Herculean task in a lot of situations, and Ataraxia will fall down, making the swap over to the Orisa after seeing the Winston. Hira back over to that Sojourn. We've seen this from Health before. A powerful pick and one that's good into a lot of stuff.
Gotta be careful if you're Jakaru in this matchup. We have seen what Helv and Ataraxia can do with this Orisa comp and what it does to opposing tank players. Jakaru, we know that he wants to dive. We know that he wants to be methodical. He's really gonna have to think a lot of this through. They're already looking for him.
Amelia with an opener onto Psycho, though, does make things a lot easier. Helv's gonna be slowly wrestled back here, saved by the teammates. I don't think the Winston Cleave is going to be quite enough to save him. Sovereigns continue to press the issue here. You can go too far in moments like this. They need to make sure they don't overheat. And oh god, they have!
That's exactly what we were talking about. I mean, you gotta be careful. This composition is just so good at just taking your tank and making them disappear. Exactly what happened to Jakaru there, and now it looks like Sovereign's likely to get this cap, but it is going to be a recontest likely here for Sovereigns. They have the ability to dive in right before this does cap out, and there they go.
What do they dive onto is the question. Emilio and Hira have such great positions over top of the point. Jakaru ate that headshot. Dear God, for lunch. Now it's just about making sure this damage from the high ground's enough. Emilio, though, on the other side is putting in work. All of a sudden, it's Sojourn v Sojourn. Emilio is running him down, a Tracer on his back. But all of Sovereign's invested in this DPS player, making sure that they stay alive to keep the hold going.
That was actually such a good play by Emilio, too, right? I mean, just playing that back corner, denying Hira, denying Psycho. Now Health over onto the Winston. They're diving in. They're trying to make a play. They have that explosion of the Kitsune rush to play behind.
Oh, it's not going to help him out anytime soon, that's for sure. Nail traded for Emilio. Kitsune rush is fading away. Sound barriers in tow for either team, but Ataraxia unwilling to commit theirs to save the Winston.
Jakaru making a ton of space as well. As Helv right now on the Winston, obviously their focus has shifted. They're trying to put some more pressure into the backline, especially if they can help out and sync with Psycho. Hira now looking to make those plays, getting pressured. Oh man, Jakaru's not going to let that happen.
Hey, Hira is getting cyberbullied. This man has not gotten to play Overwatch 2 for a couple seconds. Gets brought up to a high ground position politely by Jakaru, who's got another jump loaded for them. Oh my. That was miserable to watch, and I bet even more miserable to play for Hira.
Once again, the strengths of this composition on first point, just proving why Sovereigns feel so confident in this map pick. And now going into this next fight here, you look at the time bank, 70 seconds on it. Yikid's pulse bomb at the ready. Ataraxia, though, going to have to rely on Helv to make a play. He needs to get that reset.
Oh, wow,
man, he gets
low.
out.
Yeah, the rest of his team's dead, though. This has been so rough, man. Jakaru marking Hira. It honestly is emblematic of almost fearless marking proper in grand finals for just like 7 maps straight.
True. Yeah, true. I mean, that is definitely what we're seeing. Hira has been a lot quieter since Jakaru's put all that emphasis on him, but Ataraxia, they're diving in.
What a primal! I mean, Hell just gives them all the cleave damage. Psycho and Canale, it's easy follow-up for them.
Yeah, pretty simple to land shots when you're basically just playing Kovacs at that point, right? Like, no pressure on you, just aim at the target, hit him in the head, and worked out well for Ataraxia. Unfortunately for them, I mean, they lost so much time. So now they're pressured into just going forward, trying to make sure that Sovereigns has to kind of slowly progress. They give up some of that space. Jakaru is going to be methodically just kind of checking corners, making sure that they can push out. Meantime, Ataraxia trying to get out of that choke.
We're going to try and hold on to it with the Kitsune rush to make a lot of space, and taking down Emilio is going to buy even more of that. Suzu forced out from the Kiriko as Ataraxia pulled back to try and absorb a little bit of this pressure and stop that Jakaru dive that we know to be so deadly. And Jakaru caught dead in his tracks. Emphasis on the dead part. Ataraxia move forward.
So great momentum established now by Sovereigns. Great fight. Especially the position of that fight as well by Ataraxia, because, I mean, for about half of that fight, they were still getting cart progress and they were getting kills, so wound up working out for them. I mean, they were at a major time deficit after the first objective, so that fight there really benefited them. And on top of that, they're going to be able to be very close now to their sound barrier. It's all about Hero, though. I think in this next fight, they got to keep him alive.
Overclock's up. Hero getting targeted down. The health bar low, and Melio tips it off. Overclock popped. Hero be damned. Sovereign simply do not care. Every last resource is going into shutting down that Sojourn.
Everybody else from Ataraxia can get out or stabilize before Hera gets there.
What is going on?
They're going to recommit. Exactly. Hera's going to be back here. Hera can actually throw out the overclock, and they can go all in on this fight.
The position's still decent for the defenders. They managed to recollect themselves before the fight breaks out. That overclock on such an open angle is hard to play into, and J-Car already used his jump. He can't close this down nearly as easily as he'd like to. Does manage to get a bubble in front of it, and it's Melio who stops Hera in his tracks. The bubble falls, but so does the Sojourn. Been basically the indicator of who's winning these fights at this point.
Yeah, at this stage, it's pretty much defined by which one hits the overclocks a little bit better than the other. Ataraxia backed off yet again here, and with 45 seconds on the clock, and especially with this position that the cart is in, not a lot of opportunities left here for Ataraxia. If they go quick, they might have another shot after this, but it would be a very desperate position to be in. They now have a pulse bomb that they have to find something with. In the meantime, Sovereigns can just go on the offensive. They have Kitsune rush, and it's going to be difficult for Ataraxia to kite that one out.
Pressure now. First Kitsune rush thrown out. It's of course matched by either side. J-Car taking down Bia, though. Within the sound barrier anyways, but the tank's already going to town. Melio gets a better hero. I think we know what that means, Yurix. I don't need to cast the rest of this fight. It's already over.
Yeah. This is an if-then statement in programming if I've ever seen one. If one Sojourn is alive, then that team wins. It's very simple. A to B. Sovereigns get the stop, and we saw just how composed Ataraxia was in the final sub-map of Antarctica, but I mean, this is just looking like a completely different picture. You look back at that first objective, and the strengths of that Winston comp were obviously shining through, and then once things came into a mirror, Sovereigns, I mean, it was their turn to hold on to that momentum, and I think it wasn't even just Jikaru. Obviously, Jikaru doing so much to stifle Hera, which is a massive, massive deal in this matchup, but also Elio stepping up in such a big way, man.
I think I owe him a formal apology. I was suggesting switching off the Sojourn after the first map, but...
Oh, were you? I didn't even hear that.
This guy bucked up. It improved tenfold, and whether that was because Hero was getting cyberbullied by J-Car or not, yet to be seen, but he was making the most of the opportunities he was given. That's for certain. Hero swapping over to a Cassidy even, making it a lot more difficult now to be dove properly without taking a boatload of damage.
So this is Ataraxia sort of going back to the Reinhardt look. There are some distinct differences, though, here. Psycho going to be on the Tracer. You would expect to see a Mei in that position. Kanale going to be on the Kiriko as opposed to the BAP that did actually just get buffed as well, the 25% marker instead of 10% on the Immortality. They're instead opting for the Kitsune. They want that speed, they want that maneuverability, and also, of course, want the ability to live through some of that dive pressure and knock back Jikaru with the Suzu as well.
I think the big thing is that it's going to stop you from being primaled by Jikaru, whereas you could just get primaled out of an Immortality field. Sovereigns, though, making some swaps of their own, putting Melio over to a Hanzo, a pick that is notably strong on this map in particular. We've seen a lot of teams put it to good use. Team Peps played it earlier against SR Peak Check in a game that was streamed on Samito's YouTube channel. And oh god, it's just as deadly here. Hero falls anyways, even when it's not Sojourn. Melio seems to just be on one right now.
One of the big things about this composition is that Helv isn't going to be able to come alive and make a bunch of swings because Melio is just going to be pressuring him constantly. So Helv really has to kind of pick his timings appropriately, otherwise he's just going to get melted.
Helv is being pretty careful here about moving in. The kid's forced back, J-Car to the side. Helv can't swing to him though. Helv actually can't interact with really any of the team of Sovereigns. He can kind of hold shield and hope that Hero finds a pick or Kanale finds something. He can hold space and stay alive, but his hammer is going to be bright and shiny by the end of this.
Yeah, no dust, no grime on that thing, and Ataraxia, hey, look, Held might have bought enough time. They found a kill. Jakaru's going to go down, and look, it's Held swinging, so they get it. They at least get it done there, and of course, a minute off the clock as well. And this is where I think Kanale and the Kiriko is going to shine, because you have that extra lethality of the Kiriko, especially with Kanale on the Kiriko. But on top of that, the Kitsune Rush offers them a great recontest moment here when they get held back, and there he is.
Ultimate's coming up as well. Kanale's going to have the first Kitsune Rush. Sovereigns have to be careful. They can't really dive into this in any sort of safe way. They need to look for a first pick, but they just can't find it. The charge onto Jkaru after he's dove is just too much. The ultimate advantage from Sovereigns, or from Ataraxia rather, well leveraged to gain another win.
Wondering what's going on with Emilio there. He didn't even try to get out. I'm not sure if he just felt like, okay, it was done. Okay, yeah, he did actually. I think he did DC there. Glad we caught that. But nonetheless, Emilio and the rest of Sovereigns clearly have hit themselves into a brick wall that is Ataraxia with the Rhine composition. And this is going back to what we talked about after the first map, just the consistency that we expect Ataraxia to have if they are able to play the Rhine composition, and that's what we're getting. Obviously, we're getting a different version of that composition, but again, this is what Ataraxia has shown that they not only are capable of, but enjoy doing. They have gone to this time and time again, where they show variance in what is considered to be the meta. And a lot of that is to attack the strengths of their opposition, and that's what they're doing here again.
I mean, even just as much as they're attacking their strengths, I think they're playing to their own strengths, right?
That's fair.
Trying to play Winston into Jkaru, it's a tall ask, man. When you could just sit back, let Hira, Psycho, and Kanale farm. Yes, the Reinhardt's not getting the most done, but he's keeping the point alive, and that's kind of all you need to finish this thing off. Jkaru, though, it's Pulse Bomb, forces out a Primal. This is where things have gotten dangerous historically for the likes of Ataraxia. They're actually just going to leave, try and make sure that nobody goes down to this ultimate, and then retake the point once it's run out. They're willing to give up that ticket. It feels very wise of a choice to do so. Now with the beat, they're going to look to engage Shatter in hand here for Hell, but immediately goes on to Jkaru with the sound barrier. Well timed, though, by Natlox to keep the tank alive. Sovereigns now with the opportunity to strike back.
Oh man, health dropping. There's no shot here left for Ataraxia. Heroics, I don't think are going to be enough. Jkaru, though, getting down low. That's their only entryway back into this fight. They have to get that kill, and they just won't.
It was a sound barrier by Natlox that really did it. Keeping Jkaru up and allowing for the re-engage after Ataraxia had used one of their own. It was already a quote-unquote better beat, but the disengage on Ataraxia's beat, everything surrounding those Lucio ultimates was really what did it for them.
Still some distance left to cover, and this is where the map gets a little bit tighter. Close quarters, linear. Ataraxia certainly, I think, can press some sort of advantage here, especially as they continue to pressure out Jkaru, get some pressure onto Buddy as well, and they're just going to be diving forward with Jkaru. He's got the nano boost. They're going to give Jkaru a free ult at this point.
Jkaru does get forced away. Help has been doing this time and time again, whether it's on the Winston or the Reinhardt, diving backwards towards that Winston. And Jkaru's posed such a problem. Or the team is going to continue to, with the help of Yakids, who throws a Pulse Bomb down, dealing tons of damage into that backline. Psycho's able to trade one back with a solo kill onto the sports, but seems like a lot to ask to win this fight out. With that yellow box being so close, you have to be real careful here.
A rare miss there for Ataraxia and Kanale specifically, with Suzu available. Could have mitigated a little bit of that damage,
Psycho
perhaps. Hard to say with the shield, but yeah, the timing certainly doesn't favor Ataraxia here, as they're going to need to win this next fight. Cart is now approaching that final checkbox
too.
Yeah, they have to be so careful. Someone has to find a way to get in and contest, and it's probably going to have to be Yikids, and they're going to have to do it without a Lucio as well.
Alox gives their life for the boop. And I mean, that's just the fight over. Jkaru and Nat thought they could hold the entire team off, but maybe overestimated. Well, definitely, rather.
A brief respite, one that we didn't expect. Somehow, I mean, that is just miscommunication to the highest order. Yeah, Jkaru, I think that Alox was just expecting a shield to drop a little bit earlier, but Jkaru just wasn't in position quite yet, and mistimed there, but so opportunity on the table for Sovereigns. Perhaps, looking for a pick in the back line. They're looking for Buddy. They're clearly looking to pressure Buddy, and because of that, Jkaru gets dropped. Just no support available for him.
It really smells like we're going down to a last fight scenario, unless Emilio has something to say about it. Kanale going down doesn't bode well for them. Emilio out of the way certainly does mean the end of a fight proper. It's going to take a while for Help to actually get his health bar back, but with the rest of the DPS falling, yeah, we're certainly in last fight territory. Whoa! Wait! I was charging away. They have to be careful about not like, these are very diveable targets that they left with the cart.
Yeah, that was dangerous, especially when you look at the ult charge here too. Both support ults going to be online. You're going to have Jakaru with the reset, Primal Rage. Going to be able to help deal with Hera. Could knock Health out of the fight. Melio finds a pick and has Dragon Strike.
I mean, Canale has just not respected Melio for a number of lives now. Here trades it back, but at what cost? 27 seconds on. A shatter onto Jakaru is what they need, but they can't have the follow-up onto it. Everything but the finishing blows for Ataraxia. Sovereigns win their map pick. It was a bold one, but a well-planned gamble.
Yeah, at the end of the day, winning the map, that's all you need. It doesn't matter how you get there, but Sovereigns, I think, stood up to the test that is dealing with the Reinhardt composition, even into the section of the map that makes it a little bit more difficult. Yes, Helv did go 1-to-1 with the Winston, but ultimately, it's Sovereigns that come out ahead. But again, like we talked about before, we know that when things go into the Reinhardt, when it kind of feels like it's forced into that, to a degree, it looks like Ataraxia is just going to be considerably better in that department. So I have concerns here if this does get into kind of flipping maps back and forth. Ataraxia, with that win on the first map, massive advantage for them.
Yeah, I mean, with teams like this that are so diametrically opposed, that tends to be the case time and time and time again. Trying to flip one of these maps is incredibly hard, but that is where I think it is better to be the Winston team right now than the Reinhardt team, because losing first map as the Reinhardt team, you're slightly okay with, right? Because then you get to pick Coliseum, you get to pick King's Row, but Ataraxia have the advantage of being willing to avoid either of those should they want to. It doesn't seem like they even want to, but nevertheless, it's there.
Yeah, Sovereigns. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Sovereigns as well is a team that, I mean, clearly it feels like this is kind of one of those situations where you look back at, I mean, funny enough, the Rhine compositions of old back in 2021, when you're looking at Rush and everybody has these concepts, okay, what is a Rhine map, what is not a Rhine map, where you look at maps like Eichenwald and you'd think, okay, that's clearly a more of like a Winston-focused map. But I mean, once teams kind of figure out some of these rotations, there was a lot of players that were really, really high up in that Rush hierarchy, you know, teams like Revival and other teams like them that were saying, look, we understand that, but as soon as we get our rotations down, it becomes a Rhine map. And there are going to be maps that go the other direction, I think, where we expect that they're going to be strong Rhine maps. But once, you know, good setups, good pre-dives come out, well, maybe it could be more in favor than the Winston than we think. We'll have to wait and see, though. We're going to be going into a map number 3. About a 3-minute break. We'll see you after that.
Welcome back, everybody. A series has been polarizing, to say the least, so far here. It has now brought itself to a 1-1 tie. It's a Junkertown pick and a major sub, though, to try and turn things around for Ataraxia.
Yeah, and based off of what we've seen so far in this matchup, this is yet again another wrench in the system, right? Ataraxia is going to be taking us to an interesting map, but before we get into that, they do have a sub that they've kind of prepared for this one already. So remember, this is going to be Ataraxia's map pick. They did lose on King's Row. They're going to be taking Helve out, bringing Ariel in. Now, Ariel, what I know about this player here is that they're going to be playing a lot of those dive type of tanks. So things like D.Va, things like Winston. Those are things that you maybe could expect to see from Ariel. So perhaps when we go over to this next map that we're going to be talking about in a second here, well, that may be the approach that they're going for. You might actually see them playing some other things as well outside of those two, but those are two of the picks that we've seen them talk about, at least with regard to Ariel.
Yeah, and I think this is trying to find some footing in the match to solidify themselves. Ataraxia is definitely a team that wants to find something that works, that wants to find an answer and be able to sit with it for a while, whereas on the other side, Sovereigns definitely want a little bit more chaos, somewhere where Jkaru can thrive, start picking people off in the back line, somewhere where Emilio can start finding a couple of those flank kills in the bigger picks. The more messy they can make it, the better off they are, whereas on the other side, Ataraxia are going to try and just change the game entirely. They're looking for something that works 100% of the time, and they're putting their money on Ariel.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a gamble. I'm interested to see how it pays out. But moving on into our next map, I mean, Junkertown, going to be map number 3. This is going to be an interesting take because we have two teams that are clearly going in two different directions, at least to a degree. Ataraxia has shown that they have a massive tree of compositions that they can branch off into at any given time, and all those branches have sub branches and everything. It's a complexity that I think a lot of people are going to be spending their doctorates working on, but nonetheless, on the other side, Sovereigns clearly, I mean, it's just a Winston approach through and through, and this is a map where I think Jkaru historically has found a lot of value on Winston. I mean, you look back in Jkaru's history and you see some of the teams that he's played for and some of the matches that he's played in. A lot of those maps, I mean, rather a lot of those matchups, we saw some Junkertown in there, and Jkaru played phenomenally. We've seen full holds from him with Winston. We've seen so many different great looks that I wouldn't expect that at least Jkaru is feeling any less confidence than what they felt at the end of King's Row.
Yeah, to be fair, you would have said the same thing about King's Row and Helve. So this match has been anything but we expected it to be. It started out completely backwards, and nothing's really flipped around since then. I'm curious to see what the DPS lineups look like for these teams. Ariel bringing out the Sigmas, something that I'm not actually too unsurprised to see. I think a good counter dive option. On this map, it's particularly powerful. Even the D.Va is an option and a theoretical counter to the Winston. I think a lot of people talk about it as being one, but it never really quite works out that way. It kind of ends up being even, just given the state of D.Va right now.
Yeah, this is right. Yeah,
still.
this is the direction that we're talking about when we look at Ariel. Obviously, the D.Va being the predominant thing, but outside of that, just having those other picks that you could come to the table with. You have the option for certainly a Sigma, but then other things like Zarya that we probably don't expect to see and all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, we're gonna be seeing the Sigma here. It makes a lot of sense for this map. It is a phenomenal pick on this map, especially if you want to go toe to toe with those snipers. On the other hand, Sovereign's going to be looking to make sure that they can close the distance considerably here with their Winston pickup. On the other hand, I think Hira, Via, Psycho, Ariel, they're going to be forcing a lot of that pressure into the Winston as he's looking to close that distance.
I mean, a lot of it just comes down to holding at least some form of space. Make sure that your Widowmaker is doing something. Even if they're not killing things, the pressure that the Widowmaker exerts on the server is a lot, and to be real, the duel between Hira and Melio is worth the price of admission alone in a matchup like this for you guys to watch. It's not the 1v1 the Widowmakers are going to get, though. Instead, Hira getting bullied down by your kids. The help coming all too late.
That was a 2v1 situation that we saw one bail out in, and now this has devolved entirely. Sovereign's going to be able to probably just win the fight and the first entire section of this map off the back of that one play. So we saw Nail drop, Hira try to take the 1v1, it just didn't work out. So now Ataraxia opts to bring up Ariel's D.Va. Obviously, this section of the map, I think you do want some of that verticality, some of that mobility more especially And D.Va also has been known to just delete Winston, so it's not a bad pick, even just in the tank matchup alone.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it's a theoretical counter. Historically in contenders, it hasn't always worked out that way.
True,
but
especially as of late.
yeah, especially as of late, but it should work out pretty well. Psycho taking down Jkaru proves exactly that. The damage being thrown at the Winston is a big shift for Jkaru, who has not suffered much of the attention of Ataraxia as of late.
So now Sovereigns, all this ult charge, what can they do with it? A lot of the emphasis on this matchup is clearly on picks, and they have lost a player because of that. Ataraxia finding one in the back. I mean, that pulse bomb, that's going to be something to look out for a lot, but they're still committing to this here.
I mean, Jkaru's got a Primal Rage. Wow. That might be the first time in a long time I've seen Jkaru drop a juggle onto Bia, and it's still a deadly Primal Rage. This guy just can't not produce.
Yeah, both supports. I mean, what more could you ask for? You're down a player, you kill both supports with the Primal Rage. I mean, not a lot of players are going to find the value that Jkaru can get, and he's definitely pulling up for Sovereigns. And yet again, I mean, this is looking like it's going to be like 1-2 fights, and they have a point. I mean, if they can win this next one.
Finally,
not looking like that's happening.
Okay.
Never mind.
Yeah. This has been one of the wildest matchups. The wins seem to never come from the same place.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, it's nice to see Hira back on the board again, especially in the way that we have seen him do in the past, but now Ataraxia having, I mean, virtually every ult. Psycho's so close, and it's a tracer, it generates so quickly. The expectation is that they're going to have 5 ults in this fight, but they're not even going to need one, at least not yet. Hira, now that Hira has space, Hira's cooking.
Now it's into the Hanzo of Melio, though. This is always dangerous. I've always talked about my infinite Hanzo theorem. It's much like monkeys on typewriters. If you throw enough arrows out, one of them's going to connect with the head.
Just a matter of time at that point. It's not if, it's when. Ariel looking to mitigate that threat, though, by just being up in their face and just throwing out the DM, maybe even soaking some with the body. Dia and Kaneo are going to be forcing a lot of that healing forward, but Yickets, I mean, Sovereigns can't get through. They can't make it into a point where they can actually pressure Ataraxia with that high ground hold. And
it's also bolstered this hold by the fact that they have 5 ultimates. There we go. We're going to start spending. You might as well spend, because otherwise how else are you going to build them back up? Am I right, Hirix?
Yeah, exactly. Why sit on them when you could use them, especially if you can win a fight decisively with just one ultimate. Now Hira can start building that back up, and there's no question that they win that team fight, so they take less of a risk. They go back to those positions where they've already proven that they can hold without really having to use anything. Now it's just about combating what changes Sovereigns have here, and it's bringing in a Genji, so a little bit more of some front-loaded dive pressure to help support Jkaru and Yickets when they collapse on a single target.
I mean, the threat that Sovereigns are going to try and offer up is likely a Nano Monkey, and yeah, unsurprisingly, it's exactly what they get, but with Transcendence in tow here for, yeah, this is a long ways from over. Natlox, in fact, is forced to use the sound barrier first before Bia uses the Transcendence, so Transcendence should, in theory, be a trump card here as they push their way forward with it, claiming the high ground for themselves. Jkaru puts here in a beautiful corner, though, blocking all LOS from the supports. And that's enough to do it. Hira falls, and all of Ataraxia crumbles behind him.
I love the way that Jkaru played that fight as well. I mean, Yickets, Melio helped to kind of create those opportunities, locking in multiple different threats into different stages of the map where they couldn't support one another. You see this, just throwing Hira into the corner. Also, right before this, Kaneo was thrown into an opposite corner. Still, though, Ataraxia is going to be looking to try to contest this. Unfortunately for them, Ariel is just too late, so all this can do is steal away maybe a little bit of time if they can win the fight, and that is what they're looking to do here.
They can edge their way out to a 3rd point with just 2 minutes on the clock now. Ultimate's pretty much dead even for both sides, but a major swap from Ariel onto the ball.
Yeah, and on top of that, they're also going to make another adjustment as well with Kaneo onto the Brigitte, and that's just not going to work at all. They're trying to make sure that they can stabilize the backline, help Hira out, and Kaneo's the one that falls.
Unluckily for them, Jkaru's traded out, but it cost him a pulse bomb from Psycho. Ariel going afterwards as well means this fight's all of a sudden a lot more awkward.
You gotta start wondering if Sovereigns, if they take control of the momentum in this match, and Ataraxia can't get a grip back on it, they're just gonna waltz right through this thing. So Ataraxia need to stabilize here, and it looks like they finally have now that everybody's back into position, and they need this high ground control like they had earlier. That's what really helped solve some of these issues.
Jkaru down again. Seems to not matter what Aerial picks. It's just doing work either way. I was a little nervous about keeping the ball swap after the D.Va had done so well, but has Mayans up as well. That's going to peel away Jkaru. The question mark now is how do you deal with the Nano?
Yeah, I mean, you have the option too. I think they're likely to go Nano Blade onto Melio. Otherwise, Melio's just not going to get very much value out of that ultimate, unless it's as a follow-up to something else. But
I don't
see
know.
how they want to incorporate this.
It might still be the Monkey, to be completely honest. Like, traditionally it's Nano Blade, but yeah, it's Jkaru who's nanoed up. Melio dives in afterward with the Blade, just with Sound Barrier to get those finishing blows on the targets that Jkaru softened up.
Yeah, basically just utilizing that as a preface to Jkaru just diving in, or rather vice versa. But either way, Sovereigns get the damage that they are looking for to get the kills that they needed to push forward, but it's not done just yet. And now there's 30 seconds on the clock here. You have to start having concern now for Sovereigns, especially as Hira finds a kill, and ultimates are coming up, and they're getting closer and closer to the respawns of Ataraxia.
Yeah, trades are better for Ataraxia here because of the respawns. Jkaru, in fact, is even forced to primal. If this doesn't kill something, you're just out of tools. You're completely out of tools. Jkaru regroups with the team, but there's no clear way through this fight. Not with the Kitsune Rush, not with the rally available. Bob into the back line, and Sovereigns are looking for an angle here, but as the kid dives and dodges, he just can't find what he's looking for. Ataraxia put a stop to Sovereigns, but took a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was some sections of the map there where Ataraxia was kind of just getting ran over. I mean, you look back at that first point, it was effectively like a fight and a half, technically. And once Sovereigns breaks that initial hold, once they kind of break through and kind of rip through the initial structure of a hold from Ataraxia, it feels like they're just ripping it apart until at any point Ataraxia can finally restabilize, or some kind of heroic comes through from a player like Hira. I mean, this is just not something that I think Ataraxia wants to consistently rely on, because it's not always a consistent thing. It's as close as you can get when you're talking about a risk, but it's not always there.
No, honestly, there is a... Wow. Okay, we're coming out with the spawn hold. Jkaru to a Reinhardt for defense. I was going to get excited and talk about what you're talking about, but this seems way more fun.
Yeah, why not pivot when you're looking at Sovereigns, the team that we expect to be running the dive compositions, the Winston that we've been seeing so far throughout, pretty much. Now they're bringing back that that composition that we saw back on Antarctic Peninsula, but the major difference here being that they have an Ana as well. So maybe trying to get a little bit of that purple going, help stabilize as well. Jkaru, the extra healing. They're now in position looking to steal time. I mean, steal time with this composition.
And I think this is offering up a question of like, okay, we were able to take you on, and it was Jkaru into your normal Reinhardt player, but what's Aerial going to do about this pick? It's a big question. Not so easily answered a lot of times. Psycho surrounds them with the likes of Aerial and picks off Melio, pulling him away from the team first. Your kid's next to go on the main, most likely at least. Cowering behind a Reinhardt is only going to manage to keep himself alive for a moment longer. And steal, thieve, whatever words you want to use, I'm not sure it was done. Instead, it's just a lot of ultimate charge given away Ataraxia. Yeah,
kind of a trade that I think Sovereigns would like back at this stage, because now positional advantage, at least potentially here, into Ataraxia's hands. Sovereigns are going to have to do that kind of re-entry, try to take this high ground, and they're actually going to push their way straight through. Wall looks to catch Aerial, but a little bit of a miss. They're just trying to buy time. Again, that's the main purpose of this defensive hold, it seems like, and Ataraxia are fully comfortable in just breaking everything that they have in their face.
This is a standard follow-up to that spawn hold, is to stay on the Reinhardt composition and hold right here. You need to be quick with your rollouts, but you can hold for quite some time, and your mate can catch people out if they move too far forward. As long as that cart doesn't progress past, you can consider it successful, even with the wall there. They are contesting. Options from Aerial, though. The bomb could certainly cause some havoc in the back. Canal, where are you going? This better work. Okay, it's absolutely not. Maybe? Oh my god, it's working. The dragon's in there as well. Aerial got him shoved in a corner. This Lucio's as good as dead. Ataraxia with Canale as their martyr and found a fight win.
Yeah, not many Annas are going to be willing to do that, but Canale said, you know what, I'm tired of waiting. I'll wrap all the way around and just try to sleep something in the back line and see if we can't push through because of that. I mean, if they could have slept the Rhine and just thrown in the Diva Bomb, that would have been easily enough on its own to be able to secure a team fight. So yeah, Canale drops, but opened up a window for the rest of his team, and now yet again another opportunity for Sovereigns to take a fight. This is 3 separate engagements here defensively.
Ultimates are just a lot better for Ataraxia, though. They've got a lot more tools to get through this fight. The Transcendence was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, in this instance, and they're going to get their way forward. And it was that small little bit of ultimate charge advantage that they built up in that first fight that did it.
Yeah, and I think Sovereigns, I mean, obviously they give away point A, but I don't think they feel necessarily bad. I mean, they're 0-3 on just sustained composition, like just straight up fights that you're not trying to necessarily, I mean, obviously you want to win, but the objective is to just stall. And Sovereigns did buy quite a considerable amount of time. It got it down to 90 seconds. Now they go into a section of the map where they're going to rely on Jakaru again, maybe even Melio to a degree, and now it's all about keeping that pressure up, keeping that tempo high, and just get into positions where you can make plays, and Sovereigns are already in that position.
I mean, I think Melio is such a good option into the likes of Psycho on the Echo right now, but getting pressured out by Aerial. The counter dive in the opposing backline, though. Jakaru and you kids are kind of going to town. Natlock's even getting in on the fun. Aerial turns around, realizes their entire team has disappeared underneath them, and it's a losing fight all of a sudden for Ataraxia, who are in such a good place, who had such momentum going into it.
Psycho, though,
maybe not
turning, and we see the reset as well for Aerial. Mia's in this fight, so is Canale, so as long as Psycho doesn't drop here, Ataraxia can continue this forward. They're still looking for some kills of their own, and oh man, they're going to find one in Yikid, so...
Heart's still moving, too.
Yeah, no problems here for Ataraxia, it seems.
Fight win. Sovereigns have a small ultimate advantage coming into this, but one recontest is all they're going to get. Jakaru begins to stage a dive around the side lanes here, but Psycho's guarding it. Those sticky bombs threaten so much damage onto the Winston, who's forced to drop to try and keep his distance away from that focusing beam of the Echo. Hits him so hard under half HP. The kid dives in the pulse bomb, but was it worth it? A mouthful of Zenyatta's orbs are given straight to the Tracer. Sovereigns have a position now to try and hold on to with the Zenyatta gone. They're going to try and leverage it into something decent of a hold here, investing even the nano boost onto the Winston. Jakaru needs to find value in it, and he does, trying to take down that Tracer. Does she fall? Hira's still alive. Hira's still alive. Sovereigns have run out of tools to do this.
Oh yeah, and on top of that, they've given enough time for Aerial to get the reset. So self-destruct is going to be available if Aerial gets down low. So they can just keep contesting the cart, no problem. Just like that, Ataraxia find a way forward. They're going to cap point B and have 3 minutes to work through this final section of the map where, again, they have a lot of control of the high ground, because anytime Jakaru or even Melio or Yikid jump up, they're going to have to be met by Aerial, by Psycho. Via and Canale can do a lot of pressure from range. Hira can work these flanks as well and just apply that pressure to whoever else is trying to support those high ground pushes. You can see Jakaru taking a lot of damage. They're really going to have to rely here on Natlocks to help sustain them with the sound barrier. That pick is certainly going to open things up for them.
Okay, Psycho Force back. This is huge, does not begin state. Sovereigns were screwed in every sense of the word. Ataraxia have 5 ultimates and ton of ways to use them. That pick alone buys Sovereigns time to come up to 4 or 5 of their own. Even one on Hira should make this a kitchen sink fight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially with 2 minutes left. I mean, why not? Because you have a lot of opportunity to come back into this fight. They have a pick here as well. Canale landing the damage, and they've already committed. Jakaru, though, has to be careful. Yikid's, oh man, they're just losing everything that they're throwing out.
Sovereigns had such an advantage there, but definitely overheat. Something that they've kind of done throughout the series. Let's be real with ourselves. The overextensions have not been few from Sovereigns, and Ataraxia have been happy to punish time and time again. Now it's Aerial holding forward. Ultimate advantage neither side. Melio down again. Overclock nowhere in sight. It's Ataraxia striking first. The nano boost from the Winston, the only thing that gives him a chance in this fight. Although Transcendence will keep the Zenyatta alive, Kanale should be able to regroup with the team if things do get hairy. Jkaru can only stand on the point and watch, though, as the wick burns down on this hole. Emilio comes back, overclock into a sound barrier to re-up the sustain in the fight for Sovereigns, but they're running out of options. And as their tank falls, as the bomb comes out, Emilio's gonna press Q, but in quite a depressed manner. Let's maybe, just maybe, can find more. He's got a second. Emilio needs to make magic happen. Nothing's going to come up the picks on this Diva, but he buys time for the Lucio to come back, and all of a sudden Sovereigns come in tow. The cavalry have arrived, and Emilio saved the day.
Oh man, the sleep here as well. I mean, it's just not gonna help out Ataraxia turn this fight. 50 seconds on the clock. You see Ataraxia now in that desperation position themselves, where Psycho has gone over to the Genji. Now they're looking to try to see if they can find those opening ticks yet again here, because they do not have ultimates for this fight. They, at least not initially. They're gonna have to build into those just a little bit. They have a little bit of time to play passively, poke out some of these ults. Really gonna be looking for Hira. Hira, I think, has to be the one that goes over Yikids if Ataraxia is going to have a heroic play save the day for them. Otherwise, Emilio MVPs this lobby.
It's tall order either way. For both teams, this is the momentum of the series on the line. Far back is Bia, but it's Hira who goes down first. Emilio shuts down the pick. The hero yet again for Sovereigns. It's solidified. They've got it done. Unless maybe something could happen from Psycho. He's just nowhere near the blade. 96% on deck, and an anti-nade sentences him to death. Sovereigns have done it, and they have one player to thank.
It's got to be Emilio. The name on their mouths right now, just wow, heroics. I mean, it looked like that was going to be a one fight, and somehow, again, just the power of the Sojourn, especially with a player that is so talented on the Sojourn, able to turn that back around. Obviously, notwithstanding everything that everyone else from the team were able to pull out, we saw that separation that Jkaru was creating, especially through their attacking phase, that even gave them the opportunity. We saw the stall tactics on the other side, Kanale making that big heroic play as well. It's both sides just trying to see who can step out and shine a light greater than the other. This time around, it was Sovereigns here, and this is 2 in a row now for them. And I think Ataraxia, they've clearly shown that they have a lot of options, but not one that has found that consistent, okay, we want a 100% chance at winning that we've talked about for them.
Oh, and the more Ataraxia scramble, the happier Sovereigns are, right? The more disorganized that play becomes, the more work you see Jkaru, Yikids, and Natlocks do with those insane dives into the back line. I mean, it took everything from this team to get it across the finish line, but they're doing it. It's anything but clean play being had in this lobby, though. That's for sure. Both teams making both huge plays and mistakes left, right, and center. Ataraxia struggling sometimes to get that first engagement in the fights, but on the other hand, Sovereigns overheating often, right? Overextending when they have advantageous positions, and both teams are happily punishing one another. It is a trading of blows that we have not seen before.
So let's focus on the path forward here a little bit, Dor, because I think everybody has a great download now on exactly what we've seen so far. So let's pivot and start looking at this from a different perspective and in a different light, because now we're moving into a situation where it's match point. So Ataraxia, there's no more risks, there's no more gambles. Now you have to go into that, okay, let's go in with our absolute best possible case scenario where we have the best composition on the best map, and we move forward into a control that we are not going to be able to choose and see what we can accomplish there. We already saw what happened yesterday when they were in a very similar situation where we saw them go to a map 5, and then it got selected that it was Nepal and it was a Rhine v Rhine, and you know, they lost that situation there. Eps was able to come out on top. Now Ataraxia are in a similar position, but in a much different state, right? Because Sovereigns is not PEP. Sovereigns is a much different team. So you're in the same situation, but now you have to really come up with a vastly different answer to the problem.
And you can see them in lobby right now. They're really discussing all three options here.
They're literally talking about it.
If you asked me at the beginning of the day, the beginning of the series, it's Colosseo 100% of the times. But after what's transpired on King's Row, and then a map that's basically the opposite of King's Row in Junkertown, where do you go, man?
Yeah, tough call, because I think when you talk about this team's strengths, you like to see Colosseo because in the neutral stage of the map, you like their chances. But as soon as things break away from neutral and you have some of that high ground, some of that verticality, how do you contest the defense? How do you move past that choke point? It becomes very difficult, and you kind of need to if you want to guarantee a win. So something else that we've seen from this squad is that they actually like to go to a different map entirely. They still like to have the option of, you know, maneuvering around the compositions and all the different branches and sub branches of the complex, meta tree that they adhere to. And we're going to be seeing them going into a map number 4 that is Esperanza. This is, I think, a map that makes a lot of sense when you put it in context of what Ataraxia has done throughout the tournament so far, outside of the meta selection, right?
Yeah, this really strikes me as the Goldilocks option of everything that's been offered up. It's already kind of the Goldilocks when it comes to push, right? We've got New Queen Street where the cart will bounce back and forth end to end on the map. Coliseum where it doesn't go anywhere. Esperanza tends to land in the middle, but it also lands in the middle of that more Kings Row Coliseum style, in the more open Junkertown style where you get those massive dives on something like a New Queen Street or a Junkertown. Esperanza is dead center of both of those and is saying maybe we can try this area that we haven't quite explored yet, and maybe we can make it work. They're going to sub back in health, try and get the job done.
Yeah, I think this substitution makes a lot of sense as well, because you start bringing in the notion of the fact that, okay, you can maybe bring in the Orisa. We had a lot of success there. There's some other selections, though, that I know that Helve is capable of, and I think that they want to try. However, I think Orisa, Rhine, the most likely things that we're going to be seeing here. I'd be curious at some point, though, to see. I know that there is a possibility, a very small one, of something like Ramatra or something like that. But I would probably guess it's going to be Orisa or the Rhine, more than likely here on this pick, at least with the way that they start out. It's going to be up to Sovereigns to see how they want to contest that on a map where you would expect both of those picks to be very, very solid.
Yeah, and I'm going to say before they picked, there's a non-zero chance of a JQ. Plays pretty well into the Winston. Deals a lot of damage and helps your team stay alive up against it.
To be a counter to the ball.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. But no, a Winston and match. This takes guts. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, we did see, though, how Ataraxia, they like to do stuff like this. They obviously feel very confident with this composition. I mean, you look at every pick. If you take the Winston matchup out of the equation, you look at everything else. Well, Via on Lucio, Kanale on Kiriko, Hira on Sojourn, Psycho on Trace. Everything makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the big thing that is, I think, altering our perception of what is reality is the fact that Jikaru is just such a phenomenal Winston player that it makes this feel out of sorts, when in reality it might not actually be.
I mean, Helve trying to mitigate Jikaru it's just a lot, man. To ask of a tank that's already so flexible and playing so many roles, to play up against a one trick and to ask him to do something that insane is quite a lot.
Not fair. One trick's not fair.
Okay, man. One trick's not fair.
Walk that one back.
I think Jikaru would own it. Nevertheless, a win for Sovereigns on the first fight and dive in the neutral stage. Just a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked to Jikaru already in the interview that we saw with Moxie and Dustin just earlier. Jikaru just loves this kind of slow and methodical approach, and Ataraxia gave that over to him. Jikaru very simply was able to maneuver with the rest of his team. Yikids especially, who was able to get off a ton of pressure, especially to the backline. It was difficult for Ataraxia to protect from that. And now, going into this second fight so quickly, to see if they can adjust.
Already getting himself back into that neutral stage. Jikaru is putting a cleave on Ataraxia. 30% ahead of Helve in ultimate. A pulse bump thrown in the backline forces out the Suzu, and now Jikaru can start going to town. The health bar is low. So are Ataraxia. He takes down Psycho, and they're unable to get themselves back up without the help of a sound barrier, but because they've taken so much damage, Ataraxia actually get that up first. Even that's not enough, man. What is gonna put a stop to this team?
Sovereigns look to be walking away with this one. They're certainly walking through Ataraxia, at least to a degree here. They're going to once again push forward. Ataraxia, they built up some ultimates, but it feels like everything that Ataraxia has, Sovereigns can pretty much match, especially when you consider Emilio has just been a dynamic threat, especially with the fact that Hira has just had a Winston in his face pretty much this entire series.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, sound barrier advantage should just see you through this fight a lot of the time. Maybe Helve can peel and buy time for it with the instant ultimate. I don't hate the Primal Rage here. The sound barrier is in, though, and this is the opportunity. Sovereigns need to win the fight in the next couple of seconds, and they absolutely do. Steamrolling over the likes of Ataraxia, searching out those supports first, wisely so.
Sovereigns now with a 3-0 fight record. You see the objective obviously going back to neutral, but Sovereigns doesn't care. They have such a lead and advantage right now. 3 minutes into this map, they can look to cap out this first point. They're going to get an advantage too with respawn if Ataraxia don't dive in, and I imagine that they are going to commit to this.
It is kind of wild they've managed to pull 2 fights out of this position, though. And they actually win one of them? I'm not so certain. Pushing back the Tracer, Helv a little confused as to where to go with this Primal Rage. Certainly not as deadly as J-Karu's, that's for sure. Here and now, has an opportunity to use an overclock, but it's Melio using theirs first, pushing through, using the space that J-Karu bought to dish the damage out. It's a 2K for Melio as they keep that cart moving.
Yeah, it feels like Ataraxia is deteriorating. I mean, they're just being whittled away in this, I mean, what could be the final map. It's starting to feel like the final map. Sovereigns cap out this next objective, or the first objective rather. They're going to claim the respawn advantage, close respawns here, and they're 4-0 in team fights. And on top of that, they're in a great position with their ultimates as well. I mean, Jakaro's going to have the primal. We've seen what he can do with that. However, maybe Ataraxia can win this one now with Yikids off the table.
Is it bad? I'm still not certain. Like, with the way this game has gone, initially first picks mattered when they were onto the Sojourns, but like you said, but J-Karu having a Primal Rage, you just never know. They're going to wait for that player to come back nevertheless, though. It will be a quick respawn for Tracer. And now they look to move into that back line. They're going to use that ultimate advantage. Kitsune Rush is so available for Buddy, and they don't even need to use it aggressively. J-Karu dives onto Hero with the Primal Rage, and the fight is as good as done as long as this tank health bar can come back up and they can find a soft reset in the middle of all of it. They're going to be feeling fantastic.
Not out of the question here, though, for Ataraxia, because even though Sovereigns have won, what now, 5 fights, I believe?
It sounds kind of out of the question. I'm not going to lie when you put it that way.
But we still have 5.5 minutes on the table. They haven't gone that far. I mean, an average of, what, 12 or so meters so far per fight win. That is comebackable, we'll call it.
Kitsune Rush with the Reaper. Far more dangerous than that of the opposing side, especially with the Death Blossom there. They managed to avoid all of it. Sound barriers from either side now as Sovereigns look to re-engage this. They don't have many tools, but if they buy time, Melio's going to come up on that overclock yet again. Oh, and we know what happens now. It ends now, says the Sojourn, and Melio must oblige, laying shot after shot through, and it's Helv who's on the wrong end of it.
2 kills there. Hira finds one, though, as well, so Yikids is out. But with Helv gone and Psycho gone, oh, man, this 1-for-1 actually will probably wind up favoring Ataraxia. However, time is still against them. That's going to be something that,
as well.
Yeah, exactly. So Sovereigns can recontest this very quickly, and the more that they can contest, it certainly is going to be more of an issue here for Ataraxia, who need to push this cart on the other side of the map, and they can't even get it to neutral.
It's not moving here. It's not going anywhere. The robot works for the red team right now. There's no question about that. Helv popping a primal into the backline, trying to get a juggle going, man. 400 HP. It's forced to back away here, far off. The player that has saved this team, bailed them out time and time again. Out of hearing distance of their calls. Instead, it's Melio who answers with a nice 2-piece of their own. Sovereigns, I mean, not even starkly winning these fights, not flipping them, not finding huge moments of emphasis. Instead, just out-neutraling Ataraxia left, right, and center, lasting longer and grinding them out.
Yeah, even that last fight right there, what we saw was Sovereigns dip down about 10% HP, and Ataraxia just unable to find that last tiny little shred of damage that would have been able to tip things back over. It was like they were filling the glass, but they weren't able to overfill it to the point where it starts tipping over. And Sovereigns get another fight win. I mean, they have been absolutely dominant so far in this matchup. And something that we're hearing right now was that Ataraxia experienced a little bit of lag, I think, from Helv's perspective in their comms especially, which may be leading at least to some of the disarray that we're seeing from Ataraxia, because this does feel, I mean, to a degree, it feels kind of out of character for Ataraxia, right? I mean,
I think their heads have been spun, man. They had 3 map picks now in a row that they felt certain on, right? That not only did Sovereigns pick King's Row into them, but then you lose your map pick of Junkertown, and then you get another map pick here and you try and shift up and go to Esperanza as opposed to the Coliseum that you would have thought earlier. This isn't going well. This is where things mentally begin to spiral a little bit, and certainly in terms of the internet, it's doing that. But you do see the difference, not just in mental, but in play as well. Sovereigns look so comfortable on this composition. They've been playing it all day. Jkaru is going absolutely nuts on this Winston, and for my money, putting up a pretty strong gap in a lot of ways, not just in Winston, but in terms of being able to coordinate the team on top of it. We were talking earlier about being able to kind of overfill that glass in the neutral, but I think it's the best teams, it's the best players in their respective positions that can keep that glass teetering on the edge, and that's exactly what Jkaru, Atlox, and Melio are doing.
Absolutely. Now a pick now coming out. I mean, Hell figured out the issue. Fortunately, dies almost immediately after coming back in, and Ataraxia, though, battling back, and oh man, they're making their presence known. Unfortunately for them, we've seen this already. This isn't new that they're able to force Sovereigns off, but you see this close respawn again favoring Sovereigns, and they're going to be able to hit this back around the time that it hits neutral. At least this time around, Ataraxia can push them off just enough. They can cancel out that respawn advantage as it now pushes into the other side of the map.
And they've got the Kitsune Rush advantage here. They're going to be playing into the sound barrier of Natlox, though, which does make things pretty tricky. Ataraxia have to live for the next couple seconds before they can really capitalize on that Kitsune Rush, and they do. The shields from the sound barrier wear off and make way for Hero and Helv to come on through. Jkaru popping a Primal Rage, though, into the back line is still a very real threat as Hero falls. The damage now lacking for Ataraxia. How are they going to really finish this fight?
Oh, they've got to clear this, and they ideally don't want to utilize resources to pull that off. And unfortunately for Ataraxia, I mean, they just didn't have the staying power. They're going to be able to come back quick, but they're still, I mean, this is going to be basically a 1-to-1. And Sovereigns are just as fine saying, okay, nobody wins that fight, but you don't win it. And that's the point.
Both teams, especially Ataraxia, now fighting for their tournament life with 2 minutes on the line. I mean, this is the opportunity, right? You get past here, it's maybe one match away from making it into that Pro-Am. Helv understands that, knows the pressure that he's under, and starts hitting the juggles. An ultimate that we haven't seen out of him used in such deadly ways before. Now eliminates 2 players, and with the help of Psycho, all 5.
This is in a devastating position, though. I mean, still, I mean, such a mountain to climb for Ataraxia. Not only do they need, 60 more meters, but on top of that, there's going to be a stall point once they capture point A, where the bot just decides, I'm going to not move for a few seconds here. And that has to be accounted for when you consider only 90 seconds on the clock here.
Sound barrier advantage for Ataraxia, though. I mean, ultimates-wise, it's a pretty good spot to be in. For the blue side, man. Sound barrier in. It's turned into an engage now. Jkaru walking calmly back. Does get stuck with that pulse bomb. Ataraxia have already run the fight, though. The sound barrier was enough to overfill that glass that we were talking about earlier, and the cart continues. Reaching forward spawns would be such a sigh of relief for this team, but the journey is far from over.
Need to win 2 fights consecutively, I think, here. Maybe you can get away with 1, depending on how it goes, but when you look at what Sovereigns have coming into this next fight, I mean, you need a miracle if you're Ataraxia. So I think at this point, you try to pull as much of that as possible and get back as quickly as you can. Otherwise, hope for a miracle pick. Those are your only 2 plays.
I mean, it could be a moving pick. We've seen it from Hero before. Jkaru dives in the backline, but Hell's dive actually looks pretty deadly. It forces out the sound barrier of Natlox. Can he stay alive, though, is the question. It's time for Hero to pop the overclock. Jkaru in a world of hurt. They're searching for that Winston health bar. They know just how low he is. Oh, but it tips over the way of Sovereigns. They manage to shake down Hell first, and here in Psycho, they eventually find picks, but it's just not enough. 15 seconds on the clock isn't enough to reset either. You need a player alive to contest this cart, and it's going to be Hell coming back. Psycho does dip out. Maybe Ataraxia have bought themselves one more fight.
They also didn't move the cart at all. The bot is still in the same exact position, so this comes down to 1 single fight. They don't need 2 in a row.
Small advantages either way. It all comes down to mechanics when it's fights like this. Canale firing away shots, looking for the opener, but it's Helv who topples over, the health bar reduced to absolutely nothing. It's dust in his hands, crumbling away, and Atarax can feel it slipping. Psycho grabs hold, looking to try and grasp a win out of nothing. They've got to maintain cart pressure. Sovereigns have wrestled them back. Sound barrier so close for Ataraxia. A final breath that would give life to the fight. Yeah, just needs to get it online, and they do. Sound barrier popped, and Sovereign's now on the ropes.
Oh, Ataraxia is going to back them off. They need to find some lethality here, and they get Emilio, the hero for Sovereigns, is out of the picture.
Thanks, Jkaru, also low. He goes down. It might just be one more fight. The robot progressing through. They just need to stagger the picks out long enough. Ataraxia is so close. They're going to come up on the Kitsune rush as well, but you can't. Oh my god, he's bought them too. He's there with the Kiriko. Oh, dude, Hell's fallen. It's a Kiriko and a Tracer alone on point, but it's all they need, and a fourth is picked up by the duo. And Ataraxia, by pure nothing but hope alone, have got themselves a win.
What a finish there, too. I mean, Yikids, out of nowhere, just murdering everyone on that bot, making sure it wasn't pushed, found some kills, was elusive enough for long enough. I mean, an incredible result there, all the way around. I mean, we saw a great battle from Ataraxia to even get themselves in a position to come back from that. Remember, they had 2 minutes to basically push 90 meters, and they got that down to the wire. They got that so close. They even had a really good shot at winning the last fight until you saw them separate. You saw Hell pushing forward, trying to buy some space. You saw Ataraxia, separating out, and Sovereigns just kept the picture clear. Just make sure that we have some consistent threat on the bot so that we can maybe find some kills there and get back into this fight.
And Ataraxia were really starting to look like protagonists there for all of a moment, but not even the plot armor was enough to keep your kids from absolutely dominating. You gotta give some credit there to Buddy as well, duoing up with him, but Tracer just put in the work, man. I mean, there's nothing else to say. This series has left everything out on the server, but only Sovereigns get that opportunity to try and make their way into the Pro-Am.
Yeah, what a devastating result, too, for Ataraxia. The way that really finished, I know, coming from a player background, I imagine you being the same, that you've been in that position where it feels like, oh man, like one tiny adjustment and we win that fight and we move on to a map 5. We feel like we maybe have a shot there. We can relive kind of the past of the Peps matchup where we think we maybe have made some adjustments and we have a real chance to come back, and it just feels so deflating to be so close and yet so far away. Sovereigns, though, certainly a major victory for them on their sheet. And of course, as we always do, we're going to prepare an interview. In just a moment here, we're going to have one of the winners with Sovereigns back with us again, as we did just have them with our last series. You don't want to go anywhere, though, because this conversation is going to be one to look out for. We'll see you soon.